Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I am your host, Mike Swenson. And when I talk with real estate agents, when I talk with investors, what I always hear is, I would buy that deal if I could finance it. And so today's guest, I love it. He said it to me earlier. We focus on the deals the banks won't touch. And so we've got Malcoml Turner here. Malcoml founded Castle Commercial Capital, a national commercial mortgage banker and brokerage, specializing exclusively in commercial lending. And you have over 25 years experience in the financial industry, and you have a book out, Financing the Unbankable Deal. And so we're certainly going to talk about how that works. You know, obviously the research going into that book, all the deals that you've done in the past. Also served as a deacon for 15 years with your church in Detroit and married with 3 kids. So great family man as well. Welcome to the show, Malcoml. We're excited to have you.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, fill in some of the gaps there as far as how you got into the industry and a little bit leading up today, and then we'll dig in deeper from there.
Back in 2007, into 2006, I was doing residential mortgages as a residential mortgage lender, working for one of these call center type places. The owner of the company actually was the largest Mrs. Fields cookie franchisee in the country, and he was plowing all his cookie profits into building up his mortgage business. At the time, he had 100 brokers working for him. And I came from my years in financial services, I came from a financial planning background. So I was always taught to do the right thing for your client. And I had a prison guard who was buying his first house, and I gave him a fixed FHA mortgage for like $85,000, $90,000. And my manager was like, how come you didn't put him in a $300,000 option arm? And I'm like, well, one, he's got a fixed income. He's not a business owner. He's single. If anything happens and that mortgage just moves, he's screwed. So he needs to be in a fixed rate thing. And aren't we supposed to do the right thing for our client? Oh, there you go, Malcoml, talking about doing the right thing stuff, And I was like, why is that a badge of dishonor? And that Sunday, I was in my pastor's office complaining about that very fact, that it should be a badge of honor that I want to do the right thing, that I'm not willing to put commission ahead of the client. And he said to me, well, if you were going to do a mortgage company, Malcoml, if you want to design one, what would you do? I says, one, I would do commercial, because commercial is about the math. It's not about emotions, it's not about the bathroom or the kitchens or the yard. It's about the math. And if the math works, you do it. And if the math doesn't, you don't. Right. And he's like, well, how would you set that up? I'm like, well, you get an office and, you get some furniture, and you have to establish some relationships with some commercial lenders. And here's how you would do that. And we just, like, off the top of the cuff, maybe 15 minutes, we talked it out. And I says, and there it is. And he's like, oh, okay, great. Let's do it. I was like, whoa. I thought you were talking hypothetical. And he's like, well, we should do it. I love you like a brother, and I trust you with money more than anybody else. And, you're a smart guy. We should go ahead and just, do it. And I was like, okay. All right. And then 3 months later, we had Castle Commercial Capital up and running. And in spite of the great financial crisis, in spite of COVID, in spite of interest rates last year or this year going up, we're still here. And we're still making it happen. And so that's how I sort of got into commercial. Now, how I got into bridge loans, and where the book came about was, I'm never someone's first call, usually, unless they're a repeat client, right? Because we're not Bank of America, right? So my competition isn't actually Chase or Bank of America or the credit union or even Freddie Mac. My competition is whatever that client did to finance their last deal. It's the status quo that's our true competition, right? And so when folks go to their bank or whoever they normally get money from, and they say, no, and they still want to do the deal. And in their brain, they're not walking away from the opportunity. Then they reach out and, they'll Google commercial loans. And when you Google commercial loans in Michigan, we're usually on the first page, right? And I get that call.
Mm-hmm.
And because those deals aren't easy deals, it lends itself to commercial bridge loans, which most of the people 90% of the people I talk to have no idea how they work, what they should be used for. And a lot of people, even on larger deals, in the last 5 years, they've gotten commercial bridge loans, but I think they've used them inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
I always I put in my book, when should you not do a commercial bridge loan? When it qualifies for traditional financing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you should do a bridge loan, in my mind. There's no way you should do a bridge loan if you got a cherry deal, great cash flow, great location, great occupancy, great management. Why are you doing a bridge loan on that property? Sometimes it's because it's easy. They're just easier to qualify for. They're faster. There's paperwork. And sometimes owners they hate the paperwork. They're adverse to the needs list that's this long. And so they're like, I'll just do the bridge because it's easy. Yeah, but then it gets expensive later.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I was just going to quick say that you mentioned about, your competition is what somebody had previously done on a deal. I had a conversation just the other day with an investor. They purchased a property a few years ago, and they were looking to get, pre-approved for another loan for a property here that I was going to show them. Mm-hmm. And the lender wasn't getting back to him. And so they're like, we reached out to another lender to see, I don't know what's going on with that old lender, but this is somebody they'd worked with in the past. That person wasn't necessarily super responsive. It had been a few days. And so then they had a conversation with the new lender, and they're like, we had a good conversation. The rate that they quoted us is actually like 3% better than what we've been paying with our previous lender. And I was like, 3%? That's pretty significant. They were banking off of a relationship of somebody that they knew in the past and didn't necessarily explore all the options out there and thought, okay, we know this person, we've used them in the past, we'll just use them again. And in some ways you don't necessarily know what else is out there unless you talk to a few different people. And so I was excited that they talked to that person. I said, maybe you talk to a couple others, every deal's a little bit different. Banks operate a little bit differently. Maybe there's a better tool for you out there. So I love that you say that. And I encourage people, go talk to a few people because everybody's situation's different and you don't necessarily know what's going to be the best option for you. So you got to, have that conversation and see if people can sharpen up their pencil.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the advantages of dealing with a professional commercial loan broker, right? When you're dealing with a professional commercial loan broker, like myself, we have more than one tool in our toolbox. It's like when all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail, right? Mm-hmm. And so people will, they'll have their banker and they'll have a great relationship with them, and they'll do a deal and it works great, and they'll do another deal and it works great, and they don't even think about what else is out there, And with me, sometimes clients want something really definitive right up front. And I tell them the truth. I'll say, listen, I don't have enough information to write, in 2 seconds to tell you this is the absolute best finance option. Tell me more. Where is it located? What's the occupancy? What are you trying to do, as an investor? What are your exit strategies for these properties that you're seeking to buy? What's your hold time? All of those things factor into what makes the best decision when it comes to the money, and like with someone like ourselves, we do bridge loans, but I also do Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I will also do HUD and FHA. I will also do SBA if it's a commercial business buying property. It's like whatever makes the most sense. And then we'll look at that option and say, okay, here's the good way to go. I'm not always trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And I think most commercial brokers fall into that game. But you gotta, again, it's all about relationship. Mm-hmm. There's a book out I saw recently. It said who, not what. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think in commercial real estate, it's really key to have a great team of people around you. It's not one person. It's having a good team and team players, people that play well with others, because not everybody does. You know, I think that's key. And then once you get a good team and everyone communicates well, you're getting good advice, iron sharpens iron, then you can get to you're cooking with grease when you talk about scaling up your portfolio. You know, and I don't shy away from the hard deal. One of my favorite quotes is John F. Kennedy, where he famously said, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they're easy, because they're hard, right? And he was basically talking about like the virtues, right, of doing something difficult, right? But there's a second part of that quote that doesn't get as much press, where he says, because that goal will serve, the hard goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. And because of that challenge is one that we're willing to accept and one we are unwilling to postpone and one which we intend to win. And there's something about having that kind of commitment, right? That I'm going to succeed, whether it's easy and whether it's hard. And because it's hard, it's actually going to make me a better investor, right? Because, we all chose real estate for a reason, right? We're not in the stock market. We're not in crypto. We're not in Turo, right? Or Uber or Chick-fil-A franchises. We chose real estate because there's something about it that we love. We love the creativity that sometimes it forces out of us, right? Because it's a fun business. To me, it's a fun business. Yeah, we can make money, but this is America, man. Mike, we can make money doing anything in America, right?
Yeah.
But we chose real estate. So, we might as well have fun while we're doing it and doing hard deals where you have a much greater degree of profitability, because in commercial real estate, like a lot of things in life, we make more money based on the more problems we solve or the bigger problems that we solve. That's why when everyone's fighting over these little bitty small market, I say small, I mean small in number of deals, because they're cherry. They're, like I said, great cash flow, great occupancy, great management, great location, no deferred maintenance. Well, guess what? You're not getting a deal on that property. Well, there's a universe of deals out here that are not cherry. They got some hair on them. They got some issues. They're not quite stabilized. So therefore, the owner doesn't typically expect to get top dollar. He's not going to sell something at a 6 cap and it's sitting at 50% occupancy. Right now, bank is going to say 50% occupancy. We're not touching that. Okay, but what happens when I buy it again based on that NOI at 50%? Right, and if it's at 50% occupancy, bet your bottom dollar those rents are probably going to be 20 to 30% under market as well. It's never one thing, right? So you get that deal, you increase the occupancy to 90%, you've doubled your NOI, right? You increase those rents to market, and you do whatever improvements or change in management you have to do to get full market rent. Now you bump that NOI up again by another 20, 25%. Okay, so now look at all this extra wealth you created. Now, yeah, did you pay a little bit more in points or a little bit more in interest rate on that bridge loan? Sure. But if I increase the value, if I bought a property, like one of my clients, she bought a property at 300. Terrible property, terrible shape. 28 unit multifamily. She put another 300 into it. Okay. Got it up to 55, 60% occupancy one time that I met her. Okay. We refied her. We gave her $800,000 non-recourse bridge loan. 200,000 of it was cash out. Okay. The other 600,000 was for rehab and construction. Okay. When she's done, and the rents at that time were like $800, $700 a month. Okay. When we're done, those are going to be $1,300 to $1,400 a month apartments. And that value is going to be 2.5 million. We'll do a 70% refinance at that point. She'll get back another 900 grand on the cash outside, and she's sitting at a fixed rate loan at 1.7. Again, the value is 2.5. So she didn't max out the property, and she's going to rinse and repeat and take that 900 grand and go do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Was that deal easy? Oh, absolutely not. It was hard. There was a lot of issues with that property, but she was able to make it work, and we were able to take care of the financing and get it done. And she's happy as an angel on Christmas morning.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned about, 55, 60% occupancy. I was acquiring on a building a few months ago where the occupancy was like 77%. And the lender at the time that I was talking to said, look, for us to finance anything, it's got to be above 80%. And I know there's lenders out there that want it to be even higher than that. And like you said, it just goes to show there's other people out there, there's other options. Real quick before we keep going, for people that haven't done commercial lending in the past, they've got investment properties, maybe it's single family, maybe it's under 4 units. Real quick, for people out there that have never used a commercial lender before, how is that process a little bit different than maybe the residential lenders that they're used to working with for anything under 4 units?
Well, the big difference is it's really about the math and the numbers. What are your KPIs, right? What's the net operating income? What's the debt service coverage ratio? On our side, we're looking at the debt yield on the property. We want to know the rent roll, the quality of the leases, because I'm not asking you, most of my loans, I'm not concerned about your tax returns. I'm not concerned about your W-2s. I don't care what you do for a living, right, Mike? I want to know, what's the rent roll look like? The property is going to carry the deal. In commercial, you don't really get pre-approved. The property can get pre-approved, though. It's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have, let's say you're a realtor, you got a listing of a multifamily. I can come in and pre-approve that building for either bridge financing or Fannie Mae financing or Freddie Mac. I can pre-approve the building. Now any buyer will do.
Mm-hmm.
On the residential side, it's the opposite. The buyer gets pre-approved, and then you just find a property, as long as it appraised, any house will do, right? And so there's a much more focus and emphasis on what's the financials of that property. And people will call me all the time, and I can tell they've never done commercial. They'll say, Malcolm, I found this 30-unit property. Can I finance it? And I'm like, well, have you got the rent roll? No, I haven't got that yet. You got the operating statement? No, I haven't got that yet. You got anything? Well, I know the rents are going for, okay, you know what the gross rents are, you know how many units, and you know the location. That's not enough to qualify that property. And they'll, well, can I get a pre-approval? Like, on what? We don't know what the NOI is.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know what kind of debt it can carry? Because it's carrying the debt, not you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And that's the principal difference is getting comfortable. And you have to look at a lot of deals. So I always tell people, if you're brand new, the easiest thing to do is go into multifamily, because multifamily is the easiest to understand. Everyone has rented an apartment. They understand renting a house. They can do multifamily. From a lender perspective, there are lenders that will lend to first-time buyers, who've got, like just a couple houses. Okay, now they're not going to give them 100 units, but they may give them a loan to buy their first 30 unit or 20 unit with no commercial experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I have bridge lenders, they'll do loans with no experience, at all. But you got to get in the game by any means necessary. right?
Yep.
Because the hard part, it's like, remember when you were like 18, 19-year-old, you were trying to buy your first car, and the dealer's like, listen, dude, you got no credit.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, no, you understand, you have no credit. Your credit profile is blank. Okay. Sorry, we can't. Well, how am I going to get a loan on this Mustang if someone doesn't give me a loan on a Mustang? They're like, well, sorry, you have to go find it. And it's
Yep.
you run into that with commercial. How do I get a commercial loan if I don't have any experience? And we're heavy on experience. Well, you either partner up with someone, right? And I've connected people. I had a guy buying a 12-unit multifamily, no deferred maintenance, great cash flow. It was like 90% occupied, right? The rents were below market, so it still had some good upside potential. But the guy had zero real estate experience. He didn't even own a house, a rental house. He was never a landlord. He only owned his personal residence. And so the lender was like, man, I love this deal, but he's got nothing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I had some other buyers who a deal had fell through that they were negotiating on at the state capitol. And this property was in Detroit. And so they were like, all right, man, that deal didn't work. Now they're looking for one. And they had tons of experience, right? And this guy had the cash and great credit, right? And they had good credit too. So I called them and said, hey, can you guys connect? You know, they've got the SCRO, the schedule of real estate owned, right? They got the resume that the lender needs to feel comfortable on managing property because they had did like 12 deals, you know, but they themselves had not done a multifamily either. They were trying to do their first. And I'm like, yeah, your 12 is enough. He's got the money. He brought the deal. You guys work out a split between you, you know, and come together. Now you're on the board and he's on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to do the next deal, it'll be much easier because now you're not a newbie anymore.
Right.
You got a track record, you know.
Yeah. So what other types of deals out there that, maybe for people that just to help them think bigger or think differently, you had mentioned one, low vacancy, needs a lot of work. What are the other types of deals out there that you see that might be something that, you're interested in as a lender that, maybe an investor out there is like, oh, there's this deal, but I've talked to a few banks or I've talked to a few people and nobody wants to touch it.
Right. Well, there's a couple of opportunities, right? One, I should bring this up. In my book, Financing the Unbankable Deal, we have a chapter where we talk about the 6 gold mines of profit.
Mm-hmm.
6 what I call blue ocean strategies that you could take advantage of in the marketplace. One of them is the value add deal, right? Where, the occupancy is really low, the cash flow is terrible, it needs a lot of work. You're going to have to buy it, put a lot of rehab into it. But when you're done, maybe you bought it at 20,000 a unit, you did another 15,000 a unit in rehab, hypothetically, but when you're done, it's going to be worth 80,000, 100,000 a unit. Big upside. That's obviously one opportunity. Opportunity 2 is you have what I refer to as the owner debt crisis. These are owners who financed wrong, and now their deal won't cash flow at the new rates, and they got a balloon payment coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where your intrepid listeners who know how to work a phone and you know how to go knock on the door and say, hey, who owns this building? And just say, hey, when's your loan coming due? Have you thought about it? And there's sometimes I'll get a call from owners, they slip up and they thought they had more time and they misjudged their date. And they go, holy crap, I got 2 months and my balloon payment is due. And it's like, okay, well, your rate was at 3.5. Current rates are at 7. And they're like, oh man, I'm screwed because I maxed out cash, just last year or whatever they did. And now I can't, it won't cash flow. Okay. And they don't have time to fix it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where maybe a new owner comes in and they're going to have to sell. There's a lot of properties. There's a lot of properties, especially this next 2 quarters, the second half of this year, that are going to be coming onto the market purely because their debt is coming due and the numbers don't work in this new a new interest rate environment that we find ourselves in versus say, 4 years ago. That's one issue. The other thing that happens is you have strategic repositioning. In commercial, we have this term highest and best use, right? So, example, I had a client who had a motel. Remember that old Psycho movie? We had like the Bates Hotel, one of those hotels that you pull right up to the door, and the car lights flash into the unit, right? It's one of those movies, one of those hotels that every time somebody's on the lam from the FBI, right? They hide out at one of those cheap hotels, right? Well, this owner got one of those motels, put wrought iron fencing around it. She took that unit and combined it with the unit next door. She just knocked out part of the wall between the two at the back end of the unit, and she took out the bed and the bathroom, put a little seating area there with a couch and love seat or whatever, and then she made the bathroom a kitchenette. And then the other unit that had the bed and the bathroom, she took that door out and sealed that wall. So you came in through the seating area, and then there was the bedroom. She got seniors. Now, the square footage between these two rooms was only 432 square feet. So not very big, but seniors don't need a lot of space. And she found that, there's a lot of seniors who work for the city, or they're retired from the state of Michigan, like here locally, the state of Michigan or the city of Detroit or wherever city you're in, and they have pensions. So they're on a fixed pension, and she charged $2,500 a month.
Wow.
For 432 square feet. Well, how'd she get that much? Well, she provided maid service, and she provided 3 meals a day as well, right? She had a cook come in, a caterer. The guy charged her, I believe it was like just under $5 a meal. And he would cook meal for all of like 30 something. I was like 32, 34 of her tenants. And they never have to worry about cooking. She covered the utilities. And again, it's 432 square feet, so it's not like a big expense. She gave them internet and Wi-Fi and basic cable. And as you know, most seniors only watch like 8 channels anyway. Right? Yep. The only bill they had to pay for, living expense, housing expense, was their own cell phone. And that was it. And so, she got this really like dirtbag property for like next to nothing, made some improvements, knocked out a little bit of walls. She did them nice though. She didn't go cheap. She put nice flooring, everything. And then the thing with the maid service was she would come in and mop and clean and do their laundry and all this stuff. So all her units were kept up. The seniors didn't have to worry about housework, right? And if anyone was going sideways on her, the maid was like her secret agent, right? The maid would say, "Hey, Miss Johnson in Unit 3B is having a problem. You may want to call their adult children to come take a look at her because I think she's having a problem with her meds." Right. So even though she was all exclusively seniors, she never had like those units where it's smelly and it's causing a bad, aroma. Never happened. And when she bought that property, all in between renovations and acquisition, she probably was in for like $900,000. And based on her cash flow, that thing was worth like 2.6.
How do you underwrite a deal like that and kind of buy into that vision? And I think that's where you've got to be creative, right? I mean, there's great deals to be had. You may have to open up your creativity a little bit, but she's also got to convince you that this is a good deal and that this has a market. So what's your process for, given the stamp of approval on that?
Well, and you brought a really key point. One of what I call the number one secret weapon to getting your deal approved, and we explain this in the book, is having a narrative. Because this is America. Everything has to be sold, right? You can't get water for free, right? So when you do a loan, like especially something like this, it can't just be the numbers. The numbers are important, but you need to have a vision for that property. Where are you taking it? How are you going to apply this capital to yield profit? And for her vision was, I just want to rinse and repeat. I don't want to do self-storage and then go do like, 100-unit, multifamily. I just want to do these because I can get them cheap. I got some good crew of guys that can come in there and flip these units over real quick. I know how to get the seniors. She figured out how to market to the retired pensioners, right?
Mm-hmm.
She knows how to get those people. And she's like, I got that. She got a system down. And what's her vision? Like, oh, she wants to do 5 or 10 of these. I look at her profits, I look at her system, and I'm like, man, she knows what she's doing and she's on fire to do it. Okay. Because at the end of the day, right, Mike, an underwriter is a human being, and a human being has to sign off on your loan.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're more afraid of a deal going bad than how much interest the company's going to make off that loan. So if you can put a good narrative together that says, here's my commitment to the project, and here's my vision for where I want to take this property, and here's these great financials that are going to accompany that, you know what? That makes sense. It all makes sense. Okay, I can feel comfortable as an underwriter to sign my name on that deal. So when it goes to committee, and it always goes to loan committee, right? The big people in the committee can say to the underwriters, "This is a good deal." The guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm cool with it. Absolutely, absolutely." Mm-hmm. You don't want them wishy-washy, because the president of the company or the CFO says, "Well, all right, Mike, is this really a good deal?" You're like, "It's okay."
Mm-hmm. You got to get them to say yes. You got to be confident in what you've got, and you've got to have your ducks in a row. So they want to say yes to something like that.
They want to say yes to something like that. That's right. That's right. And so that's where a competent professional can help you put that narrative together, because it's not just the numbers, and that's, I think that's one of the things that we bring to the table, because you've done X number of deals. For me, I look at all the borrowers that I've worked with and all their deals, right? And so part of my secret sauce with Castle Commercial Capital, my firm, is I come back to you, the borrower, and say, you know what? That's a great plan, Mike, but here's an idea for you. Here's a best practice I see other investors doing. You may want to think about incorporating this into what you're doing here, right? Mm-hmm. And some of it you may take none of it, right? But when you incorporate those best practices, you become a better investor, right? And then we're able to craft a narrative around what you're trying to do that makes it, man, this thing is too good to be true, Mm-hmm. And I love when I get that reaction, right, from an underwriter, where they're like, okay, Malcolm, this happened, matter of fact, like I want to say about a deal I was working on about 6 weeks ago. The underwriter says to me, Malcolm, I'm missing something. I'm like, okay, what are you missing? I don't know what I'm missing, but I'm missing something because this deal looks too good. Right? And I'm like, well, can it just be a good deal? Right? Not everybody's right. Not everybody's like the horrible girlfriend that's going to jump out at you with a knife, right? Mm-hmm. Like maybe they can really cook. Maybe they, they know how to make cake from scratch. Like, oh my God, this cake is delicious. Well, it's just good. Take it as it is. Okay, all right. And when they go into committee and they got 6 deals that they're evaluating at their 3:00 meeting, you want to be one of the best deals on that table.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang around? Well, real estate agents, I'm excited to increase your 5 with you we're launching the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you get educated and connect with others to build your real estate investing journey, and also to help you along the way as you're working with real estate investors. So come check it out on our website, realfreedom.com. Go to the store. We have a membership, we have a mastermind group, and private coaching to help you stay accountable to your real estate investing goals and to make sure that you connect with like-minded people to accelerate your progress and to cheer you on along the way. Check it out, realfreedom.com. Click on the store. Awesome. Well, thank you, Malcolm, so much for these good stories and for sharing. For people that want to learn more about you and what you're doing and about your book, how can they do so?
They can go to financingtheunbankabledeal.com and they can look us up. Also at the bottom of our webpage for Financing the Unbankable Deal, there's an opportunity if they want to take advantage of a free 30-minute consultation, and we can go over finance options on whatever deal they're working on. They can schedule an appointment right then and there. Also, we can strategize generally, and just talk about, because maybe they've done deals like 2 different ways. And I sit there and they, for example, one guy I know, he did like 16 deals. He never did Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae. I'm like, how do you do that many deals in multifamily and none of them? That doesn't make sense. Just the law of averages, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I don't know anything about them and I never really talked to anybody. And I'm like, okay. So then I explained to him, here's the pluses and here's the minuses. And he's like, oh, man, there's probably about 5 of those deals I should have went that way.
Yeah.
And now he knows, even though he wasn't working on a specific deal at that moment, but that's where having someone that you can strategize with can help. So,
Now, is there any kind of limits in terms of what you'll look at, locations, anything like that for people that want to reach out to you?
No, we do deals nationwide. All of our, whether we do it in-house or even when we're brokering deals out, we're doing Fannie or Freddie, that's everywhere. Yep. If we're doing USDA, that's in any rural community in the United States, the USDA will do a loan, which, by the way, USDA will finance multifamily.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that.
In rural areas. So their rates are ridiculous.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I mean, there's a lot we can talk about. So yeah, go check out the book, learn, and then reach out to Malcolm and answer some questions and start a conversation, because you can never have too many great lender partners to talk with, and if not for you, to refer to somebody else. And so I always encourage people to talk to many different lenders, because everybody's different. Everybody's got a different niche. Everybody's got different rates and qualifications. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to know too many lenders out there. It wouldn't be a bad problem to have. So reach out to Malcolm, but thank you so much for coming on and sharing the wisdom that you've had.
Hey, thanks. It's been great. Love talking with you guys.